Here is Danny, and today, with Twitchcon Amsterdam coming soon, I thought I'd make a guide on the best city in the world, Amsterdam. This isn't just for gamers, so everyone else can absolutely learn some cool places from this video as well, and maybe some random fun facts. Also keep in mind, practically everything in the city is walkable, cyclable or reachable with public transport. So just rent a bike, wear some good shoes, or get a weekend ticket for example. You probably arrive at a central station, either with a bus, the tram, the metro or train. We got a good amount of public transport options here. From there you either go towards the water behind you, more about it later, or the city itself. In front of you is the Victoria Hotel. During development they bought out most of the houses to demolish it and start building the hotel. But one of them didn't want to go. So they had to build around them, resulting in this pretty funny combination. For the gamers, in the alley on the right side there is a used gaming store with lots of retro games named Game Over, which was closed when I was there sadly. Following the street and then going to the Nieuwe Dijk, there is another game store named Game Mania, which is the Dutch variant of GameStop, just with less stocks and NFT crap, and they sell more modern stuff. On the left side of the Victoria Hotel you can see the Sint-Nicolaaskerk, and a bit more on the right there is the Damrak, with some houses directly on the water, a scene that is often photographed. Following the alley next to the hotel and following the road some more, you can get the best goddamn soft ice I have ever had, in a place called Van der Linde. It is a tiny store, so when it is open there might be a long line, but don't let it scare you, it goes pretty quick. It is also next to a lovely little tunnel with glass inlaid and painted tiles. It is called the beurspassage, which is named after the stock exchange which it leads to. It is the oldest stock exchange in the world. While the building isn't the original, it is still a functioning stock exchange. Fun fact, the Spaniards actually tried to blow up the original one in 1622 by sailing a boat with explosives under the building. Luckily the plan failed because a little kid saw it and made a lot of noise. But yeah, the Dutch are kinda the inventors of the modern capitalism, when you think about it. You are welcome y'all. In front of it there is also the same kind of bronze bull you can see on Wall Street in New York. Or Waalstraat in New Amsterdam. Ha. On the other side of the square there is the bijenkorf, a massive store. Following the Damrak, which used to be a kennel, we go to Dam Square. The central square of Amsterdam with the royal palace finished in 1665. It was built as a city hall back in the day, replacing the previous one that sadly burned down in the early 1600s. In 1808 it was offered to the younger brother of Napoleon, Lodewijk, and then it became the royal palace. On the right side there is the nieuwemarkt, or the new church. That was built at the start of the 15th century. There is also the World War II monument, which is a big pillar. On the back side of the palace there is the old post office, which is now a shopping mall named Magna Plaza. From there you can also see Atlas carrying the world on his shoulders on top of the royal palace. From there it is an easy way to go to the Westerkerk and the Anne Frank house. The Westerkerk is what Anne Frank often wrote about in her books. It is also the place where Rembrandt van Rijn is buried, for example. And around next to it, when you follow the long line of tourists, is the Anne Frank house, with the famous bookcase and hole behind the wall. Around it there's also a lovely little street where you can just walk around and look at the lovely architecture of the city. Now let's go to the most famous part of Amsterdam, the red light district. Here you have the old church, or Oude Kerk, built around the second half of the 13th century. It is the oldest surviving building in Amsterdam. Of course there's tons of sex too, from sex shops to places to have sex, with legal sex workers or erotic theaters like Casa Rosso. The oldest coffee shop is also near there, called the Bulldog. There's actually a lot of brand stores around them in the same street, from a bar to a hotel, owned by the Bulldog too. Behind it all is the nieuwemarkt, which has the Waag, which is an ex-city gate, but also a place where a number of guilds were housed too, including the Surgeons Guild, which ordered the Rembrandt painting The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicolaas Tulp, of them dissecting a body. It used to be part of the same wall that linked the Munt and Schreierstore together. Behind there is the Zeedijk with some queer cafes and old VOC stuff, also some lovely architecture. And for the nerds there is a pretty decent comic book and manga store too. Around there is also one of my favorite places with the houses directly at the water. Also check the top of the houses for a little golden statue. On the other side there's also the back of the Sint Nicholaskerk, which faces directly onto the canal, which is pretty unique. If you follow the Spuistraat past the Royal Palace, you can walk towards the Rembrandt Square. First you come across a pretty famous coffee shop called the Dampkring. There is also a club next to it called Disco Dolly for a pretty fun night. If you are gay or are a girl who doesn't want to get bothered by boys, there is the reguliersdwarsstraat, which is the gay street of Amsterdam, with a lot of gay bars and other accepting places. From there you can easily reach the famous flower market called the bloemenmarkt. You can also see the munt from there, which back in the 1600s used to be part of the city walls. From there you can easily reach the shopping center called the kalverpassage, named after the Kalverstraat, where it's located at. There is some art in there, which is the Volkswagen Beetlesphere, which is a thing. There's also an elevator to a bar with some lovely views over the city. But it was actually closed, so I had to leave early. When walking towards Rembrandt Square, there you can see the Royal Theater Tuschinski, named after the Polish man who started it. It's officially one of the nicest theaters, not just in the Netherlands but in the world. Often topping the list. Seriously, it is great. At the Rembrandt Square there used to be a nice statue depicting the nightwatch, but it's gone. You can also see a big building with a TV on there. At that location there used to be the Rembrandttheater, which burned down after Dutch resistance during World War II lit the place on fire because it was full with German propaganda. Before the war it was actually a place already known for having a lot of German shows. There's also a lot of nightclubs and other bars like Club Air or Feestcafé Woody's. From there it is easy to walk to the Stopera, which houses both the National Ballet and the government of Amsterdam. Then there is the Amstel Kennel, which the city's name is based on, with the hermitage next to it, a Russian museum. Well, at least it was before the Ukrainian war. Before that it was a retirement home for nearly 400 years, in which my grandpa actually lived until the 2000s. Of course he didn't live for 400 years, but you know. Walking forwards, there is Theater Carre, one of the most famous theaters here. And the Magere Brug, which is a lovely little bridge over the Amstel. If you got €3,000 to spend, there is the Amstel Hotel, one of the most famous and biggest hotels in the country. It is also the place where John Lennon and Yoko Ono did their first in-bed protest. Walking all the way back, you can go to the Jonas Daniel Meyerplein, which has a Portuguese Jewish synagogue on it and a Jewish History Museum. It is also the place where the first German razzias were held in Amsterdam. From there you can walk back towards the Nieuwemarkt while passing Café de Sluis, from the 1600s, which was a house of the lockkeeper of Amsterdam, who did the water stuff. And it also gives you a lovely view over the Montalbaanstoren, Nemo and the Oude Schans. Behind it is a set location where the chase scene from Hitman's bodyguard is recorded, with the car falling into the water. Let's go somewhere else. On the Leidseplein or Leidse Square you can find the Hirschbuilding, which houses the Apple Store, which you might recognize from recent news about a kidnapping. Then there's also the Bulldog coffee shop, which is actually now housed in an old police station, so I love the irony in that. There's also the Melkweg, one of the most famous nightclubs of the country, that is situated in an old sugar refinery and milk factory. I've been there way too often and it's great. On the other side of the square there is Paradiso, which is housed in an old church. They still got a massive chandelier that used to hang there. In the south of Amsterdam you can find the Vondelpark and the museum area, which is very easy to reach from the Leidseplein. The park itself is lovely to sport in or to chill with nice weather. This unsuspecting tunnel that you can cycle through is actually an old bunker which has been hosting parties and events since the 70s. Then if you walk upstairs and go to the right, there is the 7 country houses, which is actually pretty cool. 7 houses built in styles of different countries. From left to right we got England, the Dutch, Russian, Italian, Spanish, French and German. Back to the Vondelpark, there is the Vondel CS, an exposition hall, bar and recording studio. Inside the park there is a statue designed by Pablo Picasso. There's also the Vondelpark Theater, a nice place to sit with beer and a speaker, or when I was there, to look at some weird dance thing. And now recently in one of the ponds there is a roof of a house, which is a thing. Exiting the park means you can go to Museum Square or somewhere else. The first thing you might see is the bathtub, which is the Stedelijk Museum, which has tons of modern art, hence the ugly modern building. And on its left there is the Van Gogh Museum, which of course has a lot of Van Gogh art pieces. On the right there is the Royal Concert Hall, also notice the gilded lyre on top of it. And then there she is, the Rijksmuseum, with one of the most famous paintings ever, the Nightwatch. Also one of the nicest bicycle tunnels under it. Fun fact, right where the Nightwatch is situated, there's a little trapdoor, so in case we ever get invaded or there's a fire, they can quickly secure it. There's also a little museum park next to it that houses the city entry of Groningen, which we might maybe somewhat stole. Yes, we stole the city gates, and then you thought the Brits were bad, jeez. It shares its back with another entry gate, but from Deventer, so we got 2 of them, yay! From there it is easy to go 2 ways. To the right towards the Heineken Experience, the old Heineken brewery turned into a museum, or straight ahead back over the bridge towards the Leidseplein. If you follow the road past the Heineken Experience, you can go to the Albert Kuip Markt, which is a market which is kinda fun. In the same street named the Ferdinand Bolstraat, there's also a store called the Febo, which is a place where you can get Dutch snacks straight from the wall, which is a pretty unique thing, and I can't believe America doesn't have something like that either. Some other random places you can visit are the Haarlemmer Poort, another of the entry ports of the city. This one is the 5th and last one on the place. There have been a lot. In the back of there is the Westwood Park. From there you can go to the Haarlemmerdijk, back towards Central Station. You can also see the Koepelkerk or the Dome Church, which is a prominent park in the Van Gogh painting View on the Single in Amsterdam. Walking past the Haarlemmerdijk towards Central, you can walk towards the backsides of the River of the Eye. The Central Station has a little nice tunnel on the left that can lead you towards Amsterdam North and the ferries. In Amsterdam North, just above the Central Station, there is the Amsterdam Lookout, which is a very high tower with a lovely view and a swing you can go on for a small payment. To get there you can either get the metro line called the North-South line or the ferry, which is free for everyone. Ain't it lovely? Or you can go to the right to some other places, like the Chinese floating restaurant called Sea Palace, which Battlefield 4 players might recognize as the place Sunken Dragon is based on. Then there's also the Science Museum Nemo, in its very distinctive green building, and the Ship Museum near it with a functioning replica of a VOC ship. Walking towards the city again, you can go past the Montalbaanstoren, which you might actually recognize from Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War in its single player campaign. If you are a football fan, you can grab the metro from the city center to the Bijlmer to check out the Johan Cruyff Arena. There's also a fan shop and Ajax Museum with a statue of the eternal number 14 Johan Cruyff. Also, do you recognize this part in front of it? No? Well, it is one of the fields in FIFA Street 2. So if you've played it, that might be a big throwback. It used to be a great field to play street football at, until they redecorated the place. They got a pitch but no goals, so sad. At the same square there is Ava's Live, formerly known as the Heineken Music Hall, which has a lot of parties and concerts. And near the Ajax shop there's the Ziggo Dome, which also houses a lot of concerts. And I still want to play video games on the illuminated side, which acts as a giant screen. Hey, game publishers who want to advertise, call me, eh? At the Plantage Middelaan there is a zoo called Artis. There is monkeys, lions and everything you can want. And then there is still so much I haven't been able to show you, or are tiny things like the smallest house of Amsterdam made for tax evasion purposes, or a boat full of cats called the Poezeboot. But yeah, if you got this far, huge thank you for watching. It was fun, but also very tiresome to make. and a lot of research went into it all. Also, cycling around the city for 2 days, at least I will be a bit healthier from the cycling, but also a bit less healthy from the sitting down to edit this. Oh well. Also, I hope you enjoy some of the unused b-roll that I shot. But hey, that is all I got for now. Subscribe for more. This was Danny and I see you on the battlefield. Also, if you are at Liquidity Festival, come say hi.